Communicate, communicate, communicate. Brain-friendly classroom management. In one professional development workshop for teachers, I began the session by asking participants to stand up and follow me wherever I would lead them, without questioning the purpose of the whole ordeal. They stood up rather unwillingly, started doing what was required of them. I led them around the premises without saying a word, up the stairs, turned back and went down a few floors, entered and came out of a few rooms, some empty, others occupied. The whole experience seemed to be directionless. It was intentionally so. In a few seconds, I noticed that a few teachers had started verbalizing their displeasure. I could hear murmurs of annoyance, and soon, some have literally dropped out and refused to follow the rest of us. By the time I'd led the group back to the workshop room, a sense of frustration and anger was clearly evident in each participant. Silence is not always golden. We continued the session with a question. How did we feel about what just happened? Everyone was eager to share their feelings about the experience and what they thought it did to them. The common answers from almost all participants were, it was frustrating, I was angry, I was wondering what was going on, I wanted to know why we were doing what we were doing, it would have helped if I knew the purpose of what we did, it's not fair, etc. I then led the teachers into an introspective moment to reflect upon whether or not they knowingly or unknowingly did the same thing to their own students. As they reflected on the incident, the teachers began to recognize and admitted that they did engage in similar behavior with their own students. My silence and coercive requirements for teachers to follow were viewed as unreasonable, unfair, and insensitive. All the teachers confessed that they did the same with their students. Common practice. Often teachers find themselves taking things for granted and communicating less than they should. They feel that students should know and understand how schooling works, what their roles are, and how they should play those roles effectively. Little do they realize that students need constant reminders, nudging, and support in order to be successful at playing their roles as learners in a classroom. This is especially so because the neural connection between brain cells in a youth's brain, is still undergoing tremendous change and development. Students tend to forget things easily because of physiological reasons, not necessarily because they want to be rebellious for the sake of it. Because we communicate less than we should, students often are not clear about what is and what's not expected of them. This leads to differences in expectations that cause differences in behavioral patterns and outcomes. Most classroom management-related issues and difficulties could be easily averted if teachers communicate more often and more clearly than usual. Communicate to the power of 10,000. A famous author and international speaker in the field of organizational change, John P. Kotter, wrote extensively about communication in his book, Leading Change. According to Kotter, organizations fail when people therein disregard the importance and practice of communication on a daily basis. He further states that if there's one variable that's crucial for the health and survival of any organization, it would be communication. Functional communication isn't sufficient. What we're talking about is communication to the point of 10,000 by making two-way interactions an integral part of communicational culture. Implication for teaching. One sure way to facilitate a sense of belonging, security, and achievement in students is by talking and listening to them frequently in a non-threatening classroom environment. This involves communicating both emotional and non-emotional academic messages in a sincere manner. Effective communication begins with active listening. Intentional, objective listening to truly understand someone or something. In addition, active listening entails listening to both contents and the accompanying emotions and messages relayed by students. This enhances teachers' understanding of students in the context of their actual experiences and helps them to move away from prematurely jumping to conclusions about an issue. Listening to students is not easy, but it is a prerequisite for forging a positive and constructive relationship with them. Teachers and students who experience a high quality of relationship contribute to the growth and success of a school. This can be achieved when they learn to communicate with one another to the power of 10,000 and continue to do so as long as the interaction is required.